Something we never thought we'd see. A player who defined an era.
I think I want to reach the highest level possible, maybe have some titles.
He's been the best player in the Premier League since he came back from Germany and signed for Manchester City.
A magician with the ball at his feet. A man who could pick a pass that didn't even exist 5 seconds ago. Now, looking like a shadow of himself.
De Bruyne.
Kevin De Bruyne isn't just any player. He's the best midfielder of his generation. The mastermind behind Man City's dominance, and the guy who made Pep Guardiola's machine tick like clockwork. And yet, here we are, watching him struggle. This isn't the glorious farewell of a legend riding off into the sunset. This isn't some poetic last dance moment where he proves the doubters wrong one last time. No, this is hard to watch. This is a slow, painful decline. And the worst part? It's happening in real time. Sunday's game against Liverpool wasn't just another bad day at the office. It was a reality check, a brutal, undeniable sign that the De Bruyne era is ending. He wasn't just outplayed, he looked lost, he looked exhausted. He looked like a man trying to turn back the clock, but the batteries in that clock had run out. The passes? Off. The movement? Sluggish. The shots? Let's not talk about that left-footed attempt that flew toward the corner flag instead of the goal. And the Liverpool fans? They smelled blood. They laughed. They taunted. They knew. And maybe, just maybe, Kevin De Bruyne knew too. Kevin De Bruyne was never supposed to be here. At least that's what Chelsea thought. In 2014, he was just another Premier League reject, shipped off to Wolfsburg after barely getting a chance under Jose Mourinho. Chelsea didn't think he was good enough. The English media didn't even blink when he left, just another forgotten talent heading to the Bundesliga. But De Bruyne, he took that personally. In Germany, he turned into a monster, a playmaking machine. 21 assists in a single Bundesliga season, more than anyone had ever managed before. He wasn't just thriving, he was making Wolfsburg look like a powerhouse. Suddenly, the whole of Europe was paying attention. And one man wanted him more than anyone else. Pep Guardiola. Well, actually no. That's the funny part. Pep wasn't even at City yet. But Man City still knew what they had to do. They broke the bank, a £55 million, a club record, to bring De Bruyne back to England. At the time, plenty of people laughed at the transfer. Chelsea reject for 55 million quid.
What?
What a waste. The British press had a field day. Then he stepped onto the pitch. It took him one game to make people eat their words. His first start? A goal against West Ham, and that was just the beginning. By his debut season, De Bruyne had 16 goals and 13 assists in all competitions. He wasn't just proving his doubters wrong, he was announcing himself as the best midfielder in England, and that was before Pep Guardiola even showed up. 2016, Guardiola arrives at City. And if there was one player that fit his vision of football perfectly, it was Kevin De Bruyne. Pep had built his Barcelona dynasty around Xavi and Iniesta. Now, he had something different. He had a playmaker who could not only see passes before they happened, but could also smash a shot from 30 yards into the top corner whenever he felt like it. And in Pep's first season, De Bruyne was everywhere. Playing deeper, dictating the game, controlling tempo like a conductor with a baton. But there was one game, one moment that told the world exactly who Kevin De Bruyne was. September 10th, 2016, the Manchester derby. Guardiola versus Mourinho, City versus United. De Bruyne versus the man that rejected him. It took him 15 minutes to rip them apart. A perfectly timed run, a silky first touch, a cool finish past David De Gea, 1-0. Then 15 minutes later, he danced past the entire United defense and hit the post, setting up Kelechi Iheanacho for an easy tap-in. 2-0, Mourinho looked stunned. Old Trafford was silent. By halftime, the game was over, and the world knew Kevin De Bruyne was no Chelsea reject. He was a superstar. City didn't win the league that season. Pep needed time. But one thing was clear, De Bruyne was the man to build the team around. And in 2017, that's exactly what happened. Pep unleashed him. He moved De Bruyne into a central attacking role, giving him full control of the midfield. And what followed was one of the most dominant individual seasons in Premier League history. 16 assists, 8 goals. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the way he did it. Outside of the boot passes that looked like glitches in the Matrix, long-range screamers that defied physics, pinpoint crosses that made strikers' jobs too easy. He wasn't just playing football, he was painting masterpieces. And City? They became unstoppable. A record-breaking 100-point season, Premier League champions, the first team to win the league with Centurion status. And at the heart of it all was Kevin De Bruyne, pulling the strings, running the show. He had arrived, not just as one of the best midfielders in England, not just as Pep's most trusted soldier, but as the best player in the Premier League. This was the beginning of an era where Kevin De Bruyne wasn't just great, he was untouchable. As we continue this video, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. By 2018, Kevin De Bruyne wasn't just the best player at Man City, he was the best midfielder in the world. There's no debate, no question, just pure undeniable brilliance. At this point, he'd evolved into something different, something terrifying. His vision was otherworldly, his passing was surgical, and his shooting? Forget about it. If he had the ball outside the box, goalkeepers were already diving before he even took the shot. This wasn't just prime De Bruyne, this was football played at an intellectual level the world had never seen before. And in the 2018-19 season, he was about to lead one of the greatest Premier League title races of all time. Ran the league like it was his playground. On the final day of the season, City needed to beat Brighton to clinch the title. They went 1-0 down. Panic, pressure. Then, in a flash, De Bruyne took control. His pass cut Brighton open, leading to the equaliser. City went on to win 4-1 and back-to-back champions. But the scary part? De Bruyne wasn't even fully fit that season. Injuries slowed him down. The real storm was still coming. The next season, De Bruyne came back with a vengeance. And what followed was one of the greatest individual seasons in Premier League history. He finished with 20 assists, tying the all-time Premier League record, along with 13 goals. Over 100 chances were created. PFA Player of the Year. Nobody could touch him. He was delivering outside of the boot passes like he had GPS in his brain. He was pinging 40-yard crosses with zero effort. He was scoring thunderbolts from outside the box like it was a video game. And the games that mattered most, he was untouchable. Against Arsenal, he smashed a rocket into the top corner, then followed it up with another goal and an assist. City won 3-0. Against Real Madrid, he ran the show at the Bernabeu, scoring one and setting up another in a 2-1 win. And against Liverpool, he scored and assisted in a 4-0 demolition of the champions. City didn't win the league that year, Liverpool ran away with it, but De Bruyne won something bigger, the respect of every football fan on the planet. Even Liverpool fans had to admit it. There was only one thing missing, the Champions League. The City had been building toward it for years. They were dominant in England, but Europe was different. It was the final mountain left to climb. In 2020-21, the season everything came together. City cruised through the Champions League, destroying PSG in the semis, with De Bruyne orchestrating every attack. They made the first ever final. One game away from immortality, and then disaster. Against Chelsea, Pep made a tactical error. And worst of all, De Bruyne got injured in the final. Antonio Rudiger collided with him, and in an instant, KDB was out cold. Fractured eye socket. Concussion, game over, City lost. And for De Bruyne, it was heartbreaking. The biggest game of his career, and he wasn't even on the pitch to finish it. Some players never recover from a moment like that. Not Kevin De Bruyne. The next season he came back better than ever. He finished with 15 goals and 8 assists, another league title, and when it mattered most, he delivered. He scored 4 goals against Wolves in one match. He produced a goal and an assist against Liverpool in a 2-2 thriller. He bagged 2 goals against Leeds to keep City ahead of Liverpool. And on the final day of the season, City were 2-0 down to Aston Villa. The title was slipping away. Then came De Bruyne. In 5 minutes, he changed everything. A perfect assist, Rodri for 2-2. One last unstoppable cross for Gundogan's winner. City won the title, and De Bruyne had done it again. At this point, there was no argument. He was the greatest player in Man City's history. This was the peak, the absolute best of Kevin De Bruyne. But every peak has a downfall, and that downfall was coming faster than anyone expected. By 2023, something was different. Kevin De Bruyne was still Kevin De Bruyne, the genius, the playmaker, the magician with the ball at his feet. But the cracks were starting to show. They weren't obvious at first. A missed game here, a sluggish performance there. Nothing alarming. Nothing that made people think this was the beginning of the end. But the truth was creeping up on him. The season started like any other. City was fresh off a historic treble, and De Bruyne was still the man pulling the strings. He was still playing those impossible passes that made you wonder if he had some sort of cheat code. He was still bending in those perfect crosses, making world-class players look like amateurs. But then came the first warning sign. Opening game of the season against Burnley, a routine fixture. City was expected to dominate, and for the first 20 minutes they did. Then, out of nowhere, De Bruyne pulled up. A hamstring injury. He walked off, shaking his head. He knew. Not again. This wasn't new. He'd been dealing with injuries for years. He always came back, always shook it off. But this time felt different. He missed 5 months. 5! A player who once played 50 games a season, now watching from the sidelines. And when he finally returned in January, something wasn't right. He still had the magic, but the speed, the sharpness, it wasn't the same. His body wasn't listening to his brain anymore. He would see a pass, go for a burst of acceleration, and nothing. That extra yard of pace was gone. At first, nobody wanted to admit it, because how do you accept that one of the greatest midfielders of all time might be past his best? City fans convinced themselves it was just rust. He just needed time to get back into rhythm. And then came the next season. Kevin De Bruyne had his way out. Al Ittihad came knocking with a ridiculous offer, and for a moment he considered it. At my age, you have to be open to everything, he admitted. He could have walked away a champion, left on his terms, and avoid the slow, painful decline. But he stayed. He thought he had one more season in him. He was wrong. This was supposed to be a grand farewell. Instead, it's a slow-motion collapse. Michael Jordan had the last dance. De Bruyne's final season? More like a drunk uncle stumbling around the dance floor, trying to keep up with the kids. The Liverpool game confirmed what everyone feared. He can't do this at the highest level anymore. Every misplaced pass, every sluggish movement, every second he spent chasing shadows made that painfully obvious. The moment he shanked that left-footed shot toward the corner flag, the Anfield crowd erupted. Not in fear, but in laughter. And then came the ultimate humiliation. Pep didn't trust him to control the game. With 27 minutes left, Guardiola pulled him off for McAtee. De Bruyne, once the heart of this team, was replaced because City needed someone who could keep the ball. That was the final nail in the coffin. He should have left last season. The signs were already there. His body breaking down, injuries piling up. He ignored them. City ignored them. Now the reality is unavoidable. Guardiola is already talking about the future, and it doesn't include De Bruyne. He could have left as a legend. Now he's staying too long, and every time he steps on the pitch, he's risking it all. At the end of the season, the greatest player in the club's history is walking away. Not on his terms, not at his peak, but because time finally caught up. Tick-tock. You can check out more videos on our channel, like why Pep's issues are much more than just Rodri.